On the evening of July 23, 2018, police received a phone call. The person at the other end confessed, saying, "I strangled him. It felt so good. I don't want to be a killer." Today's story is a pretty common one. It revolves around two people who matched up on a dating app and decided to meet up in real life. However, in today's story, one of those people ends up dead. And although this case is a solved one, the killer manages to get away with murder, although that is up for debate. But before we get any further into today's video, if you are new around here, hello, my name is Sam. This is my cat once again joining us for another true crime case. Her name is Lola. She doesn't do very much. She's a rather large cat, as many of you have pointed out. Rightfully so, she gets a lot of treats. I do discuss mostly Australian true crime cases here. I try to stick to cases that are lesser known or get less coverage. I also have a podcast. It's called Koala Crimes, if you want to listen to today's episode on the go. And just a side note, since I never mentioned it, I do have channel memberships open. It's just a couple of dollars a month if you want to support the channel and get videos early. Otherwise, you just watching right now today is more than enough. And having said all of that, let's get into today's case. So let's begin where this story starts. A match on a dating app. It was Monday, July 23, and Morlan Rathod is scrolling through potential matches on the dating app Plenty of Fish. Now, I don't know if I'm just out of the loop or it's just not a popular dating app anymore or in Australia, but then again, my dating app experience is pretty limited. Let me know if you've used Plenty of Fish and what your experience is or anything about it, but I just assume, all the dating apps are pretty much the same. You swipe left, you swipe right. If you both swipe right or yes, you match. And of course, that's exactly what happened here. Morlan came across a profile of an 18-year-old girl named Jamie Lee Dolaguy. In her profile, she mentioned that she was new to dating and that she had borderline personality disorder, suicidal ideations, and some extreme fetishes. And these were all topics that she said in her profile that she was more than happy to discuss or answer any questions about. Some pretty heavy subjects, of course, but this didn't put Morlan off, and he swiped to match with Jamie. At 6:37 p.m, they made their first contact when Jamie sent him a simple hi. The pair talked back and forth for a couple of minutes, discussing topics that were sexual in nature before deciding to meet up that evening. And regarding Jamie's extreme fetishes, Morlan told her, "We'll do whatever you want." At 6:55 p.m, he sends Jamie a message telling her, "See you soon. Get ready." She replied, "Okay, I'll put on my favorite perfume." But before we move on to their meetup, I do want to tell you a little bit more about Morlan, who he was, where he came from, all of that. So Morlan was born in India and he moved to Melbourne, Australia in 2014 to study for a master's degree in accounting, a degree that he was very proud to say that he was just months away from finishing. He was a dedicated student, so much so that he already had a job offer waiting for him when he graduated. He was an only child to parents Hiran and Jagruti. I'm probably pronouncing those names wrong and I do apologize. But it was his parents that actually encouraged him to move to Australia to improve his education and his life, and they actually sold their bungalow to fund this move for their only son. And in return, Morlan promised his parents that he would return to India to look after them. But despite this promise, Morlan actually did really love his life in Australia. He had good friends, a part-time job, he was a fan of the cricket, and overall he enjoyed the culture and the lifestyle of living in Melbourne. Those close to Morlan also spoke really highly of him, describing him as kind, humble, and a hard worker, and just somebody that would willingly help anybody out. So back to the Monday evening, at 8:01 p.m, Jamie sends Morlan a text asking how far away he is, and he tells her he's about 5 minutes away. She responds and says to him, "Okay, I'm excited. I'm wearing one of my cosplay outfits because some men like how submissive it looks." And this outfit was a Lolita-styled costume. Now, I'm not going to get too much into the fact that cosplay is in fact costume play and often portrays fictional characters, and Lolita is in fact a fashion style, but if I didn't point this out, somebody was bound to mention it. I will quickly explain what Lolita fashion is for those that have never heard of it, and keeping in mind, of course, I'm no expert on the topic, but it is a subculture from Japan that is typically very cute and girly in its aesthetic. Think frills, dresses, and very sweet styles that tend to cross over into some gothic influence. I'll have some photo examples up on the screen for those watching. So when Jamie refers to her costume as submissive, that's kind of why. At 8:07 p.m, Morlan arrives at Jamie's apartment. She lets him in and they chat for roughly 5 minutes before Jamie leads him into her bedroom. In there, they discuss some more of Jamie's fetishes that she mentioned in her profile, and she brings up choke play. Now, if you don't know what choke play is, you are too young for this video. Basically, Morlan says that he's happy to go along with it, believing at this stage that it's just a harmless game that she wants to play. At some point after this, the pair engage in sex, and afterwards Jamie decides to bring her choke play fantasies to life. She starts by sitting on Morlan's chest and putting her pillow over his face. But when she realizes that he can still easily breathe, she says to him, well, that's not going to work. And it's not long before Jamie starts to get kind of annoyed at Morlan, who thinks that this choke play is just a silly little bedroom game. So Jamie continues to find ways to fulfill this fetish of hers. She says to Morlan, does he know how to do a chokehold? He says no, and she says to him, well, can I show you how to do one? This could be useful if you're ever assaulted. He agrees for her to show him how to do this chokehold, telling her, as long as you don't hurt me. Jamie agrees, saying, not to worry. What they're going to do is develop a signal or a code, so if the choking becomes too much, he can let her know. And the secret code was just going to be a tapping, a tap, 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 I guess on her drawer or something, and this would be her signal to stop if it got too intense. As Morlan lay on her bed with Jamie behind him, she says to him, do you realize how close my hands are to your throat? Yeah, he responds. She continues, what would you do if I were to never let go? Are you strong enough to pull me off? I'm pretty strong, Morlan replied, to which Jamie said, let's test that theory. As Morlan partially sat up, Jamie put her arm around his throat from behind, placing him in a chokehold. It wasn't long though before it got a little too intense for Morlan and he started to panic, so he started doing the tap, tap, tap signal that him and Jamie had agreed upon. But Jamie didn't stop. In fact, in response, Jamie put her legs around Morlan's body, she was still sitting behind him, to prevent him from moving, and that's when he began thrashing his arms and legs around in an attempt to escape Jamie's grip. Jamie held on tighter and tighter and made the chokehold tighter and tighter until Morlan started making a weird breathing sound and, in her words, became a dead weight. Fearing that Morlan would regain consciousness, she moved him to a face-down position and grabbed the cord of one of her sex toys, wrapped it around his neck and began pulling it from behind, pulling tighter and tighter around his neck. As she did this, she whispered to him, "It'll be okay. It'll be over." Although she did later admit that she has no idea if he actually heard what she was saying to him. At approximately 9 p.m, less than 1 hour after Morlan had arrived at Jamie's apartment, she phoned the police to confess to them what she had done. She told them on the phone, "He came, he didn't seem scared. I strangled him. He's on my bed. It felt so good. I don't want to be a killer." It wasn't long before both the police and the paramedics arrived at Jamie's apartment and began performing CPR on Morlan before transporting him to the nearby Sunshine Hospital, where he did tragically pass away overnight. Morlan's cousin, who also lived in Melbourne and was very close to him, had the incredibly difficult job of having to identify Morland's body and break the devastating news to his parents back in India that their only son had been killed. Jamie was, of course, arrested following her very candid confession to police over the phone. And during a pretty lengthy police interview, they asked Jamie what was her motivation for inviting Morland over to her apartment that evening. Her answer was pretty direct and to the point. She told them murder. She told them, I knew I was going to kill him if he came over, although she did emphasize to the police that she had no desire to end his life. And when prompted to elaborate on this statement, this juxtaposition that made no sense about not wanting to kill him but wanting to kill him, Jamie explained to the police that her mind was a battleground with two very distinct sides to her personality. She said, quote, one's mean, one's nice. They're both me. One is caring and the other is destructive, end quote. And she told the police that it was her bad side that took over when she was in bed with Morland and that killing him had, quote, felt so good. Investigators would also soon discover that on the night of the murder, Jamie made some pretty incriminating Google searches. And she made these searches just minutes after her first interaction with Morland on Plenty of Fish. So between 7:05 p.m. and 7:08 p.m, she typed in the following search terms. I'm going to kill someone tonight for fun. I'm going to kill someone tonight for fun, help. I want to kill someone tonight. And I want to commit murder. She also clicked on a page called 10 Steps to Commit Murder and Get Away with It. And as a side note, honestly, I wonder what comes up on regular old Google search when you type in these search terms, because I would think this is the kind of stuff that you would reserve for the dark web. But I'm not really game myself to type in any of these search terms or similar because, you know, who knows who's watching you online these days, and I don't feel like being entangled into a murder investigation of any kind because there's some pretty damning search terms, I would say. So Jamie told investigators that pretty much as soon as Morland walked through her front door, she began to devise a plan on how to kill him in the most efficient and effective way possible. She basically started to size him up, and based on his physical appearance, she decided that he wouldn't be too strong or he wouldn't be any stronger than she was, and she believed that strangulation would be the best, easiest and cleanest way in which to murder him. Police said to Jamie, well, what would have happened if a more muscular or robust male had walked through her front door? And she told them, quote, if it was a big man, I know this sounds stupid, but I bite, and I'm into vampire fantasies. I would probably either get him to run away or latch onto his neck, one or the other, end quote. And this is when Jamie came up with the idea of introducing choke play to Morland. She didn't really view it as a personal kink or a sexual fantasy or anything that turned her on, actually. She says that this wasn't a sexually motivated crime at all. She viewed this choke play as, to put it bluntly, a means to an end. And of course, following this police interview and all of her confessions, she was charged with the murder of Morland Rathod. And over the next 2 years, she was held in custody as she awaited her trial. But before moving on to what you can only imagine to be a very interesting, messy trial debate type of thing, let's discuss who Jamie Lee Dolaghy is, because as you may have gathered from what we've discussed so far, she definitely had some issues. And let's not forget that Jamie was just 18 years old when she committed this crime. So Jamie was born on October 17, 1999, and she had 2 older brothers, a younger sister, and 3 half-siblings. Her childhood was an incredibly difficult one, marked by extreme abuse and neglect. From the age of 10, she was shuffled amongst various family members, and experienced severe mistreatment and deprivation during this time. By the age of 10, she had been removed from her parents' care and was under a child protection order. Between the ages of 11 and 14 years old, she was placed in several therapeutic foster care homes and spent some time in psychiatric hospitals where she was diagnosed with personality disorder. From 14 until adulthood, so 18 years old, she lived with 2 full-time carers organised under the child protection order. And to say those 4 years were tumultuous is an understatement. During her time in care, Jamie unsuccessfully, thank God, attempted to smother one of her carers. And at times she believed she was a werewolf, snarling and attempting to bite those around her. She also frequently engaged in self-harm and attempted to take her life on several occasions. And regarding Jamie's education, it seems like she's had little to no schooling over the years, with her last recorded attendance being in about grade 8, so aged 13 here in Australia. However, when Jamie turned 18 years old, the full-time care was withdrawn, as she was now considered an adult, and she was allowed to live on her own in her apartment, although she did receive frequent visits from carers. And this decision was made just 5 months before Morlin was killed. And in hindsight, her carers have stated that Jamie should never have been left alone to care for herself in the first place. Not that her carers would have had any control over this, of course. I'm not putting any blame onto them whatsoever. One of her carers, in reference to the murder, stated, quote, "Everybody was scared of her. No one was surprised. We were heartbroken, but not surprised." And it has since been revealed that there really was inadequate resources in the area that Jamie lived to provide her with the care that she needed for her mental health issues. Another person that was close to her case stated, "Jamie should never have been in our community and left on her own to harm other people. The police, ambulance, everyone knew the risk she posed to the community and herself. Yet that risk was not taken seriously." End quote. And in fact, on the day of the actual murder, Jamie was messaging one of her carers that her medication had run out. In a frazzled message to one carer, she said, "It's urgent. I've forgotten my medication. I didn't pick it up. Oh my fucking God." The carer calmly responded, "Just ride to the pharmacy." I assume she means get a taxi. In a panic, Jamie sends another message that says, "I feel sick with bad temptations. I want to call the police, but they won't believe me. I want to cry." And again, her carer sends a simple response that says, "Trust your judgment." And again, let's just remember that the carers would have really had no, They would have been limited in what they could have done to control this situation. They likely would have seen her out of control in the past, and they just potentially thought that this was something that was going to pass. It was just Jamie being Jamie. She was freaking out. She needed her medication. Once she got it, she would be fine. But they're carers that don't live with her full time. They visit her frequently, yes, but it's very likely that they would have had any real power in this situation, which is very unfortunate, of course, because it sounds like she did need to be in full-time care. And tragically, it was just minutes after her last interaction or last contact with one of her carers that she made her first contact with Morlin on Plenty of Fish. So the trial begins 2 years later, roughly, and it's a trial by jury that goes for 18 days. And the purpose of this trial was not to contest whether Jamie killed Morlin, because she had very clearly confessed to doing so, but it was to argue as to whether she had intent or not, given her mental state. So Jamie's defense stated that, quote, "She's so damaged and her mind was in such chaos that you couldn't be satisfied that she had murderous intent." And he emphasized that she was a torrent of terrifying thoughts and emotions, end quote. And a forensic psychologist also echoed this sentiment, describing Jamie's personality as damaged and asserting that her gross immaturity in psychological development meant she was unable to have empathy. However, if the goal was to prove premeditation and intent, well, the evidence was there through her Google searches. In response to the defense, the prosecution said what she did to him, what she did on the computer, what she says about it to him and to the police, she intended to kill Mr. Rathod. She undertook a series of steps, some preparation and plans and decisions along the way that would enable her to overpower him physically. She needed that advantage to kill him, and that's what she did, end quote. And through the trial, Jamie was frequently seen sitting in the dock, scribbling in her notepad, colouring in, drawing pictures, and occasionally smiling, but very rarely ever looking up. The jury soon went to deliberate, and they came back with the following verdict. In regards to her murder charge, she was found not guilty. However, she was given the lesser charge of manslaughter, as they believed that murderous intent had not been proven during the trial. As the verdict was read, Jamie showed little to no emotion, as she had throughout most of the trial, and even as the victim impact statements were being read, Jamie, who was wearing these childlike pigtails, just continued drawing and scribbling on her piece of paper and not paying any attention. Mullen's parents had their statement read out in court on their behalf that expressed the unimaginable pain and suffering that they had been through. They shared how they had lost their appetite, their memory, and their faith in God. Not to mention the deterioration of their mental health, leading both of them to have to leave their jobs. Part of their statement read, "We felt that everything was over for us. We only had one child. We were alone. I just hope that justice is served so that this doesn't happen to anyone else." And speaking of justice, Jamie's defense team were advocating for a mere 4 years in a youth detention centre to address her mental health issues and improve her chances of rehabilitation. And this was on top of the 2 years that she had served in custody. And they implored the judge to not only consider her young age, which was 18 at the time, but to consider her incredibly traumatic upbringing. And her lawyer emphasised that she, quote, "must be, of course, punished for what she did, but there's no evidence to suggest she intended to hurt him," end quote. In October of 2020, Jamie Lee Dolaghy was sentenced to a maximum prison term of 9 years with a non-parole period of 5 years and 6 months. Meaning that with time served, she would be eligible for parole in just 3 years and 3 months. And if you've done the math on that, that means that Jamie is pretty much eligible for parole as of me recording this video, which, in my opinion at least, is a terrifying prospect. I haven't read or heard any updates yet, but if you are curious in following this case, then keep an eye out to see what happens. I mean, I don't know if she can, it's a tough one. I honestly don't care if she's been rehabilitated at this point. She killed an innocent person. She should be serving at least the maximum term. And even Justice Peter Arman did express in court that he believed Jamie's actions expressed a degree of premeditation. However, he acknowledged that Jamie's ability to understand right from wrong was severely diminished by her mental health issues. He stated in court, "You chose in advance the act of violence ultimately perpetrated. You engaged in the pretense of a game. You took the life of a young person who had done nothing to harm or provoke you. One can only imagine the terror he felt when he realised that despite his urgent tapping, you were not going to let go," end quote. So since being in prison, Jamie has not exactly been the model prisoner. She has verbally abused medical officers, physically abused prison officers by kicking and biting. She's threatened to kill at least one inmate, and she's attempted to take her own life on 25 separate occasions, resulting in multiple hospital visits. And disturbingly, this only really scratches the surface of Jamie's behaviour in prison. But one thing does continue to bother me in this case. Did the system fail Jamie? And of course I ask this not to take away what happened to Mullen, but to scrutinise whether somebody like Jamie should have been left to navigate adulthood independently at 18 years old when she had a history of severe mental health issues? And furthermore, if she is released, in the coming months, what safeguards are going to be in place to prevent an incident like this from reoccurring? And although I do acknowledge Jamie's mental health struggles, it is hard for me to look past my belief that she had a level of understanding and intent in her actions. But in the end, she has snuffed out the life of a bright, intelligent young man. And for what? Because it felt good? Because her bad side told her to do so? And let's not forget that she was quite literally Googling those search terms on how to murder for fun, how to get away with murder, as Morlan was driving to her house and admitted to the police that the minute he walked in the door, she was sizing him up to figure out the most efficient way to kill him. Of course, she's had a traumatic past, but she clearly had premeditation in her actions. She planned this out. Maybe she didn't understand it was bad, but she still planned it. That's premeditation. I don't understand how that doesn't warrant a murder charge. This case has certainly been a very challenging one for me to research emotionally and also to navigate from a moral stance, because I think it's hard to figure out where I stand on this one. And I'm sure you guys are going to have some pretty mixed feelings as well on this case, and I do look forward to hearing your thoughts and your perspectives, because they are always interesting, and you always do give me something new to think about in every single case in the comments. So do let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with me, disagree with me? Do you think she should have got a harsher sentence, a lighter sentence? Let me know. But anyway, like, comment, rate, subscribe, all the usual things. And until next time, stay vigilant and stay safe.